Odysseus, the Epic Myth of the Hero, Book 5, Part 2. From briny depths she saw Odysseus and pitied him in grips with wave-tossed death. She shifted shape into a gull, and from the sea she flew and perched upon the raft and spoke these words of care to him. Destined one, what reason prompts Poseidon, the Earthshaker, to hate you so bitterly and set so many evils in your weary path? Odysseus, in awe of death and miracles, gripped the stump left of his mast and knew the goddess in her shifted shape. He answered her in desperate words that flew from heart to heart. Why question me, since you, a goddess, must already know? Victory in war has brought no peace, and home is just as far as when I left so long ago. From ruined Troy, sirocco winds blew my ships far north to Thracian lands. Ismarus, friends of Priam, known to us in war, the brave Cicones. We sacked their citadels and slew their men and raped their wives and took their gold. To fight 10 years will leave a thirst for riches in a soldier's soul that makes the lowest oarman, bearing shield and spear, dream of coming home a king who never lifts his hands to plow again. The loot I divvied guaranteed each man a life of leisure, all his days remaining here on earth. To kill in war permits a man to rest in peace. At least his heart desires this soothing boon, though only gods are free of care. Once we stored our booty deep inside our holds. I urged my men to leave the shore and hoist their sails for home, but easy victory lulled their normal warlike caution. Sacrificing sheep and spiral-horned cattle there, they swigged much wine and laughed at thoughts of death after all they had been through. As when a horse, untamed by man, is stalked by lions, hiding in the grass beside a water hole. He sees the first one lunge with claws and teeth bared, but stands his ground and kicks full force, both hooves catching mighty gaping jaws, and breaking bone and fang. He leaves his foe to wander till he starves to death, while light at heart he dips his head and drinks deeply. He fills his mouth and yields his back to danger unimagined. Just so, we ate and drank upon the beach, dreaming on our booty. Meanwhile, messengers spread the word throughout the land. Cicones came from near and far on horse and foot, their chiefs in chariots, attacking us at dawn in numbers like ants at March and spring. Zeus decreed an evil fate for us that day. They ringed us round our slashing ships and set their battle line. All day each side threw bronze-tipped spears and held their shields and stood their ground. But when the sun approached the time to free the oxen from his yoke, our line began to break and they prevailed. The brave Cicones routed us and drove us from their land. 6 strong grieved Achaeans from each ship met death and fate that day. 3 times before we launched, I called across the battlefield so that I left no man behind, and then we sailed away in grief for fallen friends, in joy for dodging death once more. But Zeus, the cloud-gatherer, lashed the north wind into a tempest. Clouds concealed the land and sea, and night from heaven fell. My ships were driven by the blast until the sails were torn to shreds. In fear of death, we dropped our sails and rowed for land. We harbored there 2 nights and days, weary sorrow eating at our hearts. But on the 3rd, the dawn gave birth to ruby skies. We hoisted sail, took our posts, and ran with trailing winds. And thus I might have reached my native land unscathed, but waves and currents pushed me out to sea, and winds from cold northlands beat me back from rounding Cape Malea. I was driven far off course well past Cythera, 9 full days the savage winds prevailed, pushed my fleet across the fish-filled sea, but on day 10 I beached my slashing ships and set my foot upon the flowery land of Lotus Eaters. There on shore we drew fresh water, giving thanks to Zeus, and made our meal. But when we'd satisfied our souls with meat and drink, I sent 2 comrades to go out and find what kind of men here ate the bread of Mother Earth, and with a third as herald. Now they left the beach at once, but didn't return as bidden with the fiery setting of the sun. We slept with spear and shield in hand, and stirred at every sound that night. With ruddy swirling dawn I chose a group of 12 companions then, and went in search of those I lost. We left the shore and marched through fields of green and drooping buds, whose scent was sweet and sharp and resinous. At length we heard the skirl of pipes that played a leaping air. We knelt to spy, and soon the fields below were filled with naked virgins, running through the plants whose pollens gathered thick upon their breasts and thighs and laughing cheeks. At first we thought we'd stumbled on a troop of frenzied maidens celebrating Dionysius with orgies to the gods. But then I saw some ancient crones who scraped the dust from breast and thigh with curving strigils, gathering it all in ancient earthen jars as if they handled relics of a god. This dust they pressed with olive oil into a paste, and mingled with their food or burned like incense on a glowing ember, breathing in the swirling magic vapors deep. Whoever breathed the fumes forgot the day before, the day ahead, and only idled in the laughing, hazy waking moment. I led my 12 companions close. The Lotus Eaters showed no fear of arms we bore, nor shame at being all unclothed. The girls had skin that seemed a gift of night. Their eyes were dark and charcoal-rimmed. Their hair threw off the light like rocks the sea had splashed. A grinning, toothless crone directed me to where my lost companions were. Inside a temple dedicated to the bull god, we found our men reclining naked there, embracing lovely priestesses and feeding on the lotus dust and breathing in the burning fumes. All wished to stay among the Lotus Eaters. None recalled their home. I forced these men to come back to our ships. They wept and only let themselves be dragged. I ordered each be bound upon his bench with oar in hand, and led my ships away from shore for fear that others might fall prey to lotus dust and lose all thought of coming home. We struck the gray, tossed sea by might of oar and left the land of smoky dreams behind us in our wake. We sailed dismayed at heart until we reached the land of Cyclops, insolent and lawless beings, laying all their trust upon immortal gods, giants who neither plant nor sow, yet still they harvest wheat and barley, even grapes for fruit and wine, for Zeus's reign supports them. Never do they meet in just assembly seeking counsel, neither do they share appointed laws, but dwell on mountain peaks in hollow caves, each one the law to wife and child, with no regard for one another. Truly monstrous men, who live alone, apart, and wild. We ran our slashing ships upon the shore, and on the beach I called my men to me, and spoke to them with daring words, and said, "Remain upon the beach here, trusted comrades. I, along with 12 stout men, will go and seek these strangers out to learn just who they are, if they be cruel, unjust, and wild, or whether kind to travelers, and fear immortal gods inside their deepest thoughts." This said, I led my men away from shore up rugged trails. I had with me a skin of sweet dark wine, a gift Ciconian priests of Apollo's made to us for sparing their temple. Soon we saw a meagre cavern roofed with fragrant laurel trees, and round about the mouth was built a courtyard, rough-cut marble stones set deep into the earth, and tall, straight pines and twisted, gnarled oaks. Inside were pens for sheep and goats at night. All about did bear the mark of monstrous hands. We did not find the owner there, for he was shepherding his flocks out in the fields. The crates inside were stuffed with cheese, and pails were filled with milk and whey. My comrades begged me to steal some cheese and run back to the ships and sail away, but I refused so that I might see this man, however large he was, and whether he would honor me, as Father Zeus commands all strangers be. I wish I would have listened, for he proved no joy to meet. We kindled fire and offered sacrifice and ate some cheese, and thus we sat until the shepherd drove his flocks back home. He hauled a wagon load of firewood under one great arm and tossed it to the rough stone floor with a crash, while we, in terror, shrank into the furthest recess of the cave. He penned his flocks, then lifted up and set a mighty rock in place not 50 men could lift, and sealed the doorway shut. He milked the ewes and bleating goats, and put each young beneath their dam. He then rekindled warming fire and saw us, hiding deep in flickering shades, his lion eye as sharp as hunger pain, stuck dead center of his shaggy head. He spoke, and in his mouth wicked points of teeth did flash in firelight, dazzling us. His voice was deep and cruel as sudden rockslide. Strangers, who might you be? From what far land did you set sail across the wave-ridden sea? Could you be traders bringing goods from foreign lands? Or do you wander with the wind as pirates, risking life and bringing evil doom to men of other lands? So he spoke, and in each chest our spirits shook in terror at his voice and monstrous sighs. But even so I answered him and said, Truly we have sailed from Troy, Achaeans, driven far by every wind there is across the mega gulfs of bitter sea. We only seek our home, but fate has blown us way off course, as was, I guess, the will of Zeus. I say that we are soldiers of High King Agamemnon led, whose fame is now the greatest under arching heaven. Mighty war for honest cause he waged, and sacked a splendid city, slaying many people. Here to you we come in peace as suppliants, in hopes you'll treat us kindly as is due, wayfaring strangers. Give us hospitality as Zeus commands. Zeus, the stranger's god, avenger, walking in the steps of reverend suppliants on earth. This said, the monster answered with a pitiless guffaw. You are a fool, or come from distant lands, misguided stranger, seeing that you bid me fear immortal gods. We Cyclops pay no mind to aegis-bearing Zeus, since we are elder-born and better far than mere Olympians. Unless the heart inside my chest did me, myself, command to spare you all, I surely wouldn't out of fear to dodge the wrath of Zeus. But only tell me where you beached your slashing ships, close by or somewhere farther off. I just would like to know the more to help. So he asked to lure me, but I was not fooled, and answered him in crafty words. My ship, the Earthshaker, Lord Poseidon, ran aground upon the rocks that dot your coast, but I, with my companions here, escaped sure death. The monster from his pitiless heart did not reply, but like a snake that lures beside a rabbit trail with jaws agape, he sprang at two of my companions, seizing them in massive fists by their feet, and dashed their heads to stony earth until their brains flowed out the cracks that split their skulls and wet the ground in clots of red, and their horror-struck eyeballs popped from hollow sockets, dangling by the cords. He hacked them limb by limb and chewed them raw, as would a hungry lion, down to toe and finger joints, as well as guts and marrow bones. We held our hands aloft to Zeus and wailed at sight of such cruel deeds, and helplessness consumed our spirits. Eating man-meat washed down by tangy goat milk, the Cyclops stuffed his gut up to his belching throat, then flopped among the sheep to sleep that night. My men were mad to set upon the Cyclops then and there, and come what may with spear and shield and sword. My friend Polites gnashed his teeth and spat his words between each heaving breath. I fear that monster means to eat me heart and soul, and all I was will turn into no more than demon dung. So let's map out a plan right now to kill this beast that knows the speech of men, but hates the heart of us. And don't forget who sails along. Versatile Odysseus will find or make or luck upon the surest way to bring black death and vengeance upon that horror in his slumbers before he rises hungry here upon this earth and eats us all tomorrow morn. The rest of my companions clamored their assent and urged me freely work my scheming mind to say my plan aloud. I never knew what dread could start inside my soul to look into their hopeful eyes. Their fighting blood was hot and quick to try, while I must make them pause to think it out.